right, we're back with rapdrugs.com studios, Bong Toke Productions, therapdrugspod.
Welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, turning on and dropping out. Yeah, it's what you've finally all been waiting for. All you research and psychedelic drugs fanatics. We're getting into some of the MK Ultra stuff today. We kind of have been pre-speculating on it with militarized use and study of psychedelic drugs from history and drugs period around the world, and what Russia and China kind of got into with human experiments, as well as Japan.
Yeah.
And
Germany.
Yeah, exactly. And a bit about Germany and how that all kind of got picked apart and shut down and led to the revolution that was kind of potentially maybe more than anyone could imagine. That was MK Ultra, or experiments on people beyond just psychedelic drugs.
For sure. Yeah. Radioactive, fucking hypersensitive, or what do they call that? Sensory overload, where that's when they fucking blast you with repeated same music and shit.
Yeah. Torture tactics that they still use to this day.
Yeah. All kinds of things.
Yeah. But yeah, we're Todd kind of, I might know a little bit about it just from dabbling in and out over the years and watching different documentaries, but Todd kind of did the deep dive on the research this last week to kind of give us an overview.
Yeah.
Or maybe peel back the first layer.
When it comes to MK Ultra, you find it's the biggest onion there is. Every layer has another layer underneath of it. Yeah. I mean, it's I don't even think we should be referring to it as MK Ultra. You know, that in itself, a lot of different researchers in the CIA have attributed that to kind of a disinformation program done by the CIA to get people to look more at MK Ultra and Sidney Gottlieb and less at MK Artichoke and MK Search.
So why do they even have these names behind any study? That's my real thing. Would you think there's not completely confidential names, or do those all end up coming out eventually?
What do you mean by
why
that?
Isn't it just Project Orange Banana Penis or?
All right. Well, they're just
Project certain, Operation Midnight Climax. That's a cool name.
There's certain reasons for that. Project Midnight Climax is a sub-project. MK Ultra is an umbrella project, so it encompasses all kinds of projects. And MK Ultra, it stands for MK is a designation that I think it was used for mostly in World War II, but seems to have been involved in all the MK Ultra type projects, all the mind control projects. True. It just is a designation.
Mind Conf Ultra. No, I'm kidding. No. But no, it's like how all the ships are called SS whatever.
Yeah, it just means
just a thing.
It's just top secret. That's all it is. It's like a designation for how secret it is. Yeah. MK is one of the highest, or at least was during World War II.
One of the highest ones they talk about openly.
Yeah, and Ultra is also the highest. But what you find is that's maybe a misleading name intentionally. MK Artichoke. MK Artichoke was actually named after Artichoke was apparently a street drug dealer in Washington D.C. The Artichoke King. That's I guess what it was named after. And then MK Search and Delta, those are just random names, I would think. But
well, I don't know. I think Delta, like you said, was probably on Ultra cover for maybe MK Search. These names, these front names are really a deeper name. Maybe MK Search was one, and that MK Delta was a distraction for it.
Yeah, 100%.
MK Ultra is to Artichoke. But who knows? We're speculating at this point.
From what I understand, what I read was MK Delta was the program just for getting the drugs. That was mostly like just obtaining LSD or
Delta. How do we get from nothing to drugs?
Yeah. And then MK Search, this is a little bit of speculation from me, a little bit from research. Seems to be, I think,
connecting the dots, eh?
Yeah. What I think it was is the post Project Artichoke. I think Artichoke became MK Search. And but what MK Search was and what Project Artichoke both were for sure were like the foreign projects. MK Ultra is the domestic research they did, the stuff they did in the United States. But the MK Artichoke, like MK Artichoke had like a special operations team that would go out on missions to dose people with LSD or try and hypnotize them or shit like that. You know what I mean? Now that was like, but that was, those guys didn't work for MK Ultra. MK Ultra was just like them testing on people in the United States mostly.
Yeah.
The more foreign tests usually were under MK Search or MK Artichoke.
That's true. Maybe MK Ultra was the subcontractor version of MK Artichoke also. Like, yeah,
100%. That's exactly what it was.
Nice. Because, yeah, we know that. I didn't even read too much into that right now, but just from what I know about the MK Ultra studies and how it may or may not have involved Charles Manson and all these different mini operations, they kind of deflected through different agents. And we know agents may or may not be subcontractors in a lot of cases, like in my movie.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan may or may not be a subcontractor for the government. You know.
Yeah.
Probably just for Netflix Space Force though. But
yeah.
With the one thing we kind of do know is a real thing, and Pineapple Express has been commended for this. Even Seth Rogen and James Franco, masterpiece there. Is the OSS, and I guess did that come out of the psychological warfare branch of MIS, or was the OSS like an overarching thing that kind of fell onto these drug studies, or what's that kind of about?
The OSS is pre-CIA. It's pretty much just the World War II intelligence. So OSS comes out of the fact that Pearl Harbor happened, and then we were like, okay, naval intelligence and military intelligence isn't enough. We need a intelligence division. That's what the CIA was originally made for. But before they thought the CIA, they were like, we at least need a wartime one. They weren't sure if they were going to keep it around in peacetime, but they were like, we need a wartime intelligence division. So that was the OSS.
So just like the Air Force, the Space Force, everything else that's kind of been created since World War II, it was created out of necessity then.
Exactly.
Or competition, I guess.
Exactly. We did have some intelligence, but we didn't have the level that Russia, Germany, and England all had. And England being our ally ended up being where we got a lot of our intelligence experience from.
Yeah, they were supposed to be protector of the Atlantic coast, but once the Pacific coast became a threat, I guess you kind of need to have a quick response time, because there's a huge distance between the ocean. And we know now how fast these responses can like kind of shut down.
And that was the thing. The thing too is like, it's not even like they didn't know. They knew Pearl Harbor was coming. That's a fact.
Yeah.
They just didn't. First of all, they didn't think the Japanese were going to do it or were capable of doing it. Second of all, they didn't have a response plan for it. So that was kind of what. I forget who it was. The guy after FDR. Here. Who was that? I don't know.
Was it
Can't
Eisenhower?
Remember. No, it wasn't Eisenhower.
No, Eisenhower was after the war. I don't know.
I can't remember. The guy who took over after FDR died.
Truman?
Yeah, it was probably Truman.
Okay.
But he said, he was like, we knew Pearl Harbor was coming. We just didn't know what to do about it. Right?
Yeah.
So that was more like, and that I think is why the CIA has become an organization that goes out and like commits assassinations and stuff like that. Because they weren't just about collecting intelligence. We can collect intelligence with other divisions.
Counterintelligence agency.
Yeah,
that's really
exactly.
That's really what it is. Like if
counter espionage.
We know now that it's kind of tough to connect all these organizations, but like the Defense Intelligence Agency is what the Central Intelligence Agency technically is. Like they are the ones that are the intelligence agency for the military.
Right.
Whereas the Central Intelligence Agency, you would think that that connects all the intelligence agencies, but it doesn't. It's just
doesn't really.
It's not a FBI. The Federal Bureau of Investigation's the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and then the NRO, which is the satellite recon. So the Central Intelligence is like you're saying, the feet on the ground for outside of the U.S. Actually,
they're not actually even supposed to operate inside the United States. That's actually illegal. Everything MK Ultra was illegal, really.
Nice.
Because
so that's why it was
CIA,
under the OSS guys, right?
Well, no. That not really.
That was just two different things going on, eh?
Yeah, well, the OSS happened earlier. The OSS became the CIA.
True. So was it the original committee from like 1943 that's here in front of me? All these crazy guys who's all these doctors?
So well, we'll get into that in for a second. Those guys were the original guys. But I want to talk a little bit about Henry Anslinger, the head of the FNB, because
So this was like the precursor to the OSS, I guess, on not the reason why it was created, but kind of like one of the directions they went in.
In some ways, a lot of the FNB agents were OSS agents during the war, and did different missions for them, just because they had experience with kind of a sort of espionage, which is like getting into like mafia organizations and stuff like that. You know what I mean? They did things like that, right? Yeah, FNB agents. Narcs. Yeah, they were narcs. So let FNB. The FNB there was a couple different narcotics agencies, but that was I think the first one. It was originally created. It's actually a part of the Treasury Department, and it was because they were going after the fact that they were smuggling more so than the fact that they were selling drugs back then. You know what I mean? It was more about getting the tax money. So they were a part of the Treasury, and Henry Anslinger is actually credited also with the guy who got marijuana to become illegal in the United States. He was putting up the arguments, the reefer madness arguments, which is really funny because when we look into these projects he did on the OSS, he privately didn't think any of those things. He knew full well what marijuana was, and that reefer madness was a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, well, yeah, right? Exactly. It's a good way to like separate black people and white people and demonize black people, and also create this system that cartels could profit off of, and pharmaceutical companies and hemp companies.
100%.
Like pulp and paper companies were protected from hemp and that stuff. Crazy. All the benefits to certain industries.
Another interesting thing with Henry Anslinger was that he operated during World War I actually as a spy, apparently. I didn't read too much into it, but he was part of like a small army intelligence group, I think, operated in Europe. And that was how he started getting into the drug industry, was he saw in Europe, out of France and Germany, all these companies, they were the biggest producers of cocaine and heroin at the time, France and Germany. And all of the companies producing them were selling legal heroin and cocaine, and then also out the back door selling illegal heroin and cocaine.
Okay. So yeah, he was basically that guy then. And the reason why he wanted to make this stuff illegal, he knew it was a threat to industry, especially Bayer. They're the specialized.
He was seeing this going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got a lot of that stuff shut down, I think.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Because Bayer, they make aspirin. One of the biggest competitions to aspirin is marijuana, and they've also been known to dump massive amounts of drugs in Africa that have been faulty or expired. So fun stuff. Anslinger's awesome.
These racist organizations and their racist leaders.
Yeah, exactly.
These are the kinds of people that only these guys would fucking do Operation Paperclip and bring in Nazis.
Well, who else would pursue manifest destiny above all else, like other than these crazy folks?
Yeah, people who are real white supremacists that feel they're actually supreme over everybody.
Well, even if you don't, if you're a Nazi pacifier, you're a white supremacist by association. Just like you're a murderer by association.
Exactly.
There's no. Well, if you accept it, you are one.
Anybody, those guys pretending, they're just pretending for show. You see a lot with these CIA guys that they were getting in trouble back in the day for being like Nazi sympathizers or like neo-Nazi sympathizers. I'll get into a little bit. The guy who ran actually Project Artichoke is a huge homophobic and a big anti-Semite. But
beard's like rubbing the mic or something.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Fuck, I forgot what I was saying.
You were saying that neo-Nazi sympathizer guy.
Yeah, so you find out a lot of these guys like really were actual huge racists back in the day. The CIA is really known, the people who work there, as like a rich white boys society. You know, high class.
Skull and Bones Club, like,
Skinny, yeah, exactly. Skinny Gottlieb, he felt like he didn't even feel included in there because he was Jewish.
Oh, true.
So they looked down on him. He didn't feel included as part of the CIA.
Yeah.
They were fucked up people. So let's go back, I guess, to Harry Anslinger, and I need to do more research for pre-OSS stuff. So I'm just gonna mention it a little bit. But Harry Anslinger was definitely involved with drug experiments going on. Not exactly which drugs or what they were trying to do, the goals. One thing I knew they were doing, there's a place. I wish I remember better. I think it's definitely a federal penitentiary. I think it's in Pennsylvania. The division in the penitentiary is called ARC, and it was the medical facility, and they were trying to find why certain people are addicted to drugs and other certain people don't become addicted to drugs. So they were like doing fucked up things. Yeah, kind of. But like,
I mean, depends if you were addicted before the study started or not.
Yeah,
if they wanted to get you addicted.
Yeah, like they would do things like they'd give you heroin and then they'd stop giving you heroin and see like what you'd do to get more heroin. You know what I mean?
How much you'd shit your pants.
Yeah. So that's where
supposedly. Just wanted to say, supposedly psychedelics will like cure all withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. We've seen a lot of
like physical withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah, that's really physical one. That's intense.
Yeah, like so if you're withdrawing from those type of different drugs or whatever, you can take like ibogaine or I think like even LSD and just feel good for 12 hours instead of fucked up.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I don't know where I was going.
You were saying that they were testing these.
Okay.
Like the early tests were testing these addiction therapies.
So it's not totally clear.
Or human experiments on addiction.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah.
Maybe Shutter Island style. Have you seen that?
Easily possible.
Oh yeah, I already asked that.
Yeah, we talked about it in the
bonus episode. But yeah,
check it out.
He's giving them. You get cigarettes from the place the whole time you're there.
Okay.
These camels, and there may or may not be psychotropic drugs in them.
Oh, 100%. That's exactly what these things are doing.
So that's like the addictions therapies.
Yeah.
Stuff. And yeah, this movie talks about OSS and shit.
For sure.
Not CIA. Yeah. It talks about OSS specifically.
So these
lobotomy experiments too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those were done a lot too. They were actually trying to figure out a way to do lobotomies without cutting people's head open with like radiation.
Nice.
They wanted to like target use radiation to target. Yeah, it was fucked. But
I guess fluoride in the water too. That's supposed to melt your brain.
I don't know.
But I don't know if that's a government control thing or just like a thing that's known, but like teeth falling out of your head is worse for you than that.
I don't know. I've watched a lot of stuff on that, and it seems like there's confusion over what kind of fluoride they're using. Like, there are really dangerous kinds of fluoride that are used for fucked up shit, but like they use fluoride that's not that bad. I don't know.
It's a difference between sucking back a tub of toothpaste and having a sip of water with a friggin' unseeable trace amount of fluoride.
Yeah, it's
unseeable, untastable.
It's I don't know. The whole fluoride thing has been considered one of the greatest medical achievements of our time by a lot of doctors. So I don't discredit how important good teeth is, you know.
Yeah, true. But yeah, with the addictions therapies and the pre-OSS stuff, obviously any of this stuff we could talk about forever, but
for sure. So yeah, what the pre-OSS stuff, not totally clear what all was going on then. A lot of top secret stuff that isn't totally out there, but definitely know that the FNB was involved. There was experiments going on in federal penitentiaries, and there was one experiment that I heard of that the Army did with a drug called G2, but I couldn't find a whole lot of information on the drug. I just know that a few of the people that worked on the OSS Truth Drug project worked on this G2 project.
Nice.
So we'll get into the OSS project. It started in 1942. That's like, I think, a year after the war started. And the brainchild for this is Harry Anslinger. So Harry Anslinger and a guy named Bill, or actually, I don't totally remember his name. They called him Wild Bill. He's the first. He's considered the father of the CIA. Was the OSS director.
Yeah, William Donovan, exactly.
That guy. So he was the head of this project with Harry Anslinger. I guess his whole thing was he was just trying to find a truth drug, a drug that you could give someone and they'd give you information that they weren't willing to.
Nice.
Without it.
So that's like the start of the Pineapple Express.
Exactly.
Kind of they're showing that with the weed. They thought that might work.
Yeah, and that's exactly what that was. That was 100% how that went down, was how it happened in real life. They gave him a cigarette. It was full of what they were using was THC oil. They went with a particular strain. We'll talk about it in a second. But they took the THC oil and they would inject it with a syringe directly into a cigarette, and then they'd have the person smoke the cigarette. And it would just it obviously just got you really baked. And so people were more open about talking. They used this for like 7 years on mostly Nazis and Japanese imperialists.
Nice.
But
so people that probably needed some weed and would have not been smoking regularly.
Yeah. They were just stressed out and they needed to fucking chill out and that was all.
Yeah, could have just gave him a few drinks.
Yeah, beer would have done the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, we had Bill Donovan, Harry Anslinger. Bill Donovan, he goes to Harry Anslinger, the head of the FNB, and he's like, "Do you got any drugs that can do this? Do you got any drugs that might have be a truth drug?" So he brings him a bunch of different drugs. And they mostly focused on weed, I guess. And they tested a particular kind of weed, and they tried it just as cannabis. Then they tried it as an oil, and they also tried a synthetic version. The oil seemed to work the best. And they were trying various ways to do it too. They were did sprays or just eating it, and they also tried smoking it off a coal.
Nice.
And they found the cigarette worked the best, probably just because they didn't know about doing dabs. You gotta fucking heat something up like red hot to get the good burn.
Well, if they realized if they had coals, they'd know at least that much. But yeah, they didn't have any TI nails or water pipes.
Yeah, if you ever smoked off a coal, it doesn't burn as fast and as strong as a red hot nail. You know what I mean?
What about a stove?
Stove for sure, but they weren't that creative.
Hot plate.
Hot plate.
That's
Street smarts, man.
true. That's true. Even though, you're right. He was in the FMB. He was like the accountant of the drug dealers.
Yeah.
Like Jeffrey Epstein, the bounty hunter, but with money.
Yeah.
I can't really kill anybody, but I can fuck a kid. Lex Wexner gave me some of his money to go fuck kids. if you're down.
Yeah.
We can fly on this jet to my private island with this kid I found to fuck. And you can go find more kids to fuck on the way. Yeah. Here you go, Harvard.
It's too real.
Yeah.
Too real, Jason. Too real.
Yeah, exactly. Way too real. But yeah.
Yeah.
Less kids, more drugs.
More drugs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if you want to read off that document I got there, and as you're going through, I'll start explaining who some of those people are.
Oh,
but involved in this, I want to say first is you'll see a lot of doctors, the head of a lot of universities, like Johns Hopkins University. The first doctor on there was the head of the project, and he was the head of a what's
Overholster.
Yeah.
So it seems like a German last name, Overholster. Professor of psychiatry at George Washington U, and director of St. Elizabeth's Hospital, Washington, D.C. So St. Elizabeth's may or may not have been a psychiatric hospital.
It was a psychiatric hospital, and it's suspected to be the first. It's suspected by some to be the first psychiatric hospital, but when you dig deeper, obviously it's not. Or the first psychiatric hospital where they tested drugs unsuspectingly. But when you dig deeper, it's only the first one to be conducted by OSS, which just got created.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The only open. Well, yeah, the only one that they brought Nazis in early to do.
Well, this is before Nazis.
Maybe not.
Well, this is before Nazis. This is OSS.
Yeah,
during the World War II.
This would be the scientists who didn't agree with being a Nazi and left Germany early.
Yeah, he was probably Jewish.
That's even more likely. You're right. But yeah, so there was that. There was Dr. John Whitehorn, professor of, again, psychiatry at Johns Hopkins, like you were saying. Still one of the top psychedelic institutions today. Dr. Edward A. Stryker, professor of psychiatry at University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Lawrence S. Kubel, associate in neurology at the Neurological Institute, NYC. Again, it's one of the biggest neurological institutes till today. And liaison officers on the committee were Mr. E.P. Coffey, director of the FBI labs, Mr. J.H. Anslinger, commissioner of narcotics in Treasury Department, Admiral Charles S. Stevenson of the Navy. I don't know what the BU stands for, Bureau of Medicine and Surgery, Colonel R.D. Halloran of the Surgeon General's Office, Lieutenant Colonel R.E. Locker of the Military Intelligence Service, Commander Cushing, attached to the NDRC, coordinated the committee.
Okay.
So,
is that all the name?
Well, there's a handful of other people too. The work was assisted by Dr. Watson Eldridge at the St. Elizabeth's Hospital, Captan George H. White, and James A. Hamilton of OSS. So yeah,
So George White, those last two guys, both of them were FNB agents that were brought into the OSS during World War II, and both of them later were brought back in by Sidney Gottlieb to do different sub-projects in the MK Ultra. George White, most known for doing the Midnight Climax project. He was the head of that. He thought that up himself.
Nice.
Another interesting thing too is you see George White is here during this project and actually leaves the OS not by his own choice to go back to the FNB, and all he wants to do is work for the CIA. And apparently Sidney Gottlieb felt real bad for him because he was also denied army service during World War II, so they got kind of connected on that. And the only reason he worked for the CIA again was because of Sidney Gottlieb.
Yeah, nice. But at the same time, though, didn't he also go to Camp X for counter espionage?
So this is during World War II.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
When was the Camp X thing?
So that was World War II. See, here's the thing with George White. During World War II, the rich boy mentality is just kind of starting, and they're really accepting of people that they don't like, just because they're trying to win this war, right? So George White is seen as like this rough guy who's like, I don't know, he's like dirty fucking guy. He dosed his own friends with LSD just for kicks. You know, he's that kind of guy.
Yeah, like a jock egghead, what you would imagine.
Yeah,
not saying that they're all like that.
With the frat boys, you know what I mean? He didn't even fit in with them. He was the dumbass of them.
Exactly.
So after the OSS, after World War II, he gets kicked out, even though he's considered a really effective agent, does a lot of good stuff during World War II, catches a lot of spies.
But a master of counter espionage.
Yeah. So he starts off in Camp X. We'll talk a little bit about Camp X. It's a spy training institute in Canada, run by the British and train OSS agents during World War II. And later...
And me, if you send $500 to our PayPal link, I can give you the quick 12-hour Camp X training course via Zoom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Via Zoom. Via Zoom instruction.
Yeah. You'll learn how to kill somebody in one punch and how to make heroin out of things you could find in your kitchen.
Yeah. Or bathroom.
Yeah.
Like your own feces.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's a few different methods for black tar heroin.
Black tar heroin.
Yeah, all of them adulterated with fentanyl, though. So you do need to have a computer and a credit card, or just access to the dark web. You can get credit cards.
Yeah. Dark web's got credit cards for sale.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if you have a computer, you can get all those things. Join my class, send $500. Or you can join Todd's masterclass if you send $1,800, 3 installments, 3 12-hour sessions by Zoom, and then 1 in person in 2025.
Yeah, you learn counter espionage without even leaving your room.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You'll be able to shit in the toilet from 20 feet away.
all special agents know how to do that.
Yeah,
fucking
exactly. Without performance enhancing drugs. You don't need George White's help with that.
Yeah,
but yeah, it seems like he was well learned at the Camp X.
Well learned,
and really good at I guess staying low profile.
Yeah. Well, I mean, George White, it was super hard to find any information on him. Most of the stuff I found on him came out of a book called The Murder of Frank Olson. Probably won't be able to get into him too much, but he was a guy that got dosed and jumped out the window.
Frank Olson's one we could dedicate a whole episode to, because there's actually like a good documentary on it and a lot of documentation on it. And,
a lot of stuff.
The family, and it's a big reason why a lot of this MK Ultra stuff came to light, and why it's very likely there's a lot of stuff that was destroyed and may not be known about.
Yeah,
like almost like a whistleblowing that caused the fires and shit.
Yeah.
Think about like Watergate kind of stuff.
Yeah. Because him dying, I think, might have had a lot to do with what they call the Church Committee, which is where a lot of this information came out. The JFK assassination was another thing that pushed for the Church Committee. If you want to look into more of that, that's where a lot of the early information, MK Ultra information, came from. But the deeper stuff didn't come out till later with good authors and reporters. I don't know where I was going.
We were just talking about George White and Sidney Gottlieb basically. But some other agents, like what was Alan Dulles up to in Switzerland? Do you know at all? Like,
I was just wanting to mention
to be one of the only guys out of the country. But yeah, what were you saying?
Yeah, I only wrote down him and wanted to mention him because he he was head of the CIA through a lot of years, like, I don't know, a long time. He was the first civilian head of the CIA, and he ran these projects the longest. He was also started MK Ultra, that particular one. The earlier projects, like MK Artichoke and stuff, were started by like his boss and stuff like that. But during World War II, he was getting his name as an OSS agent. He was the head of the OSS in Europe.
Okay.
And he operated out of a house in Switzerland, which I found really interesting. So he's sitting in Switzerland, right?
Yep.
And just the border in Germany, they're doing these mescaline tests and stuff. And he's doing counter-espionage, trying to figure out what's going on there. So I almost wonder if maybe he had even heard back then that they were doing these tests. They were doing peyote tests. And another interesting thing is he's in Switzerland when LSD is invented. That's where he's operating out of, right? In the same years.
Yeah,
I thought both those things were really interesting.
That was a big question I had for a long time. Like, what kind of ties did Hoffman have, or the research facilities Hoffman was at, without him knowing, possibly even have to this? And all it was like a synthetic drug / psychedelic drugs boom.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Germany and Europe.
Yeah. I don't know how deep Hoffman's company's relationship with CIA goes, but they
like you said, though, a lot of the stuff at that time also was just purely pharmaceutical narcotics company ran espionage.
Yeah.
As well. Like
one thing I was going to say, we do know that the CIA got all their LSD from them, though. I don't know how deep the connection is, but they bought it all. So did Russia also, though. We were actually competing to buy. I have a little note in there at some point. It's probably near the bottom. We were actually competing to buy the LSD from the company. Nuts. So like Russia bought like something, I'm not going to get the numbers right. Russia bought like 10,000 LSD tablets. And then the CIA was like, I think it was Sidney Gottlieb probably, or Alan Dulles at this point, or maybe whoever was running Artichoke. They were like, oh shit, they're buying all this LSD. We need to fucking outdo them now. So they lied and told the government that Russia bought like 10 million tabs. So then we had to buy 100 million tabs. And however much they ended up buying, they went to the company and they were like, we don't even have that much fucking LSD, man. Like, you guys are crazy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So then they bought all of it and they had to like get rid of it like a bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It
was fucked too, because they literally went there with like huge black duffel bags full of cash.
Nice.
I have a note about
how the FMB got all their money too, right? Was probably cash.
Yeah. Was fucking all the confiscated drug money. One funny thing, George White actually got a lot of his drugs that weren't LSD. He got a lot of them from there's a warehouse outside of New York City where the FNB stored all of the drugs that they confiscated. So he used to just drive there and he'd like take heroin or cocaine or whatever to use in these drug experiments.
Yeah, and it says James Hamilton, did he come up with the Operation Midnight Climax? Was that the plan to use prostitute assassins?
No.
Or was that a different plan during World War II?
That was a World War II plan. He came up with just like to do prostitute assassins. That had nothing to do with MK Ultra. That was just like an idea he had.
That was a Midnight Climax idea, hey?
Quite possibly. He was involved with Midnight Climax.
Nice. But the OSS, so he was like a one-trick pony, eh?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. Whenever he got the chance, let's do a brothel.
Yeah.
He's just a horny guy.
He just loved prostitutes.
Yeah, exactly. How do we get prostitutes involved? Can I write off prostitutes with this?
Yeah.
A lot of these guys seem like imagine if you like did the Skull and Bones at Harvard in your frat. And then like you're like go to your fucking office job on Wall Street. And now you just fucking punch a typewriter all day and like
yeah
and fucking boring. Sign me up for a fucking MK Ultra so I can, or fucking send him to this hospital so I can cut people's brains open and feed them psychedelic drugs. Like,
yeah.
Of course, like it seems like this is just where these guys end up.
Yeah.
Who
Well,
are,
a
like,
lot of people.
crazy.
A lot of people.
Who like want? It's like the police that want to shoot black guys. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to just because people are going to be police officers to protect their community and because it's honorable. There's also guys who just want a license to kill.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, and that's like these agents. Like,
Oh yeah, George White.
Hopefully they're not volunteered into a plan.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh yeah, who wants to join this experiment where we drug each other? George White's like, me.
Yeah.
Instead, he just uses counter-espionage skills to get chosen.
Yeah.
But yeah, then there's Dr. Lawrence Kuby on the TD.
Okay,
committee.
that guy?
Yeah.
So he was involved with the original OSS thing. He was one of the doctors listed there in that document. And he also recommended George White to a guy we'll get into in a minute that worked at the OSS named Lovell.
Yeah.
So he recommended him, though, because Lawrence and George White worked together on the G2 drug project, the G2 Army drug project that was conducted in New York, Pennsylvania penitentiaries, something like that.
Yeah,
that was all I could really find on it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's G2.
Yeah. Yeah, they were just injecting people with straight fucking Gatorade, just electrolytes, just fucking.
No sugar though.
I wonder how many electrolytes it would take for people to fucking. Sorry, go ahead.
No sugar though. They knew that would kill you.
Yeah.
Just straight potassium until your brain melted. Until they could convince you were a fucking banana. Yeah, but yeah, they just did a lot of tests on prisoners and created some drugs even. So did some experiments that were probably against all sort of human rights.
Yeah, 100%.
Like instead of testing on rats and mice, let's test it on these prisoners.
Yeah. Well, one interesting thing someone pointed out was like before World War II, unethical experimentation was kind of not illegal, just like not considered a good thing. You know what I mean? So a lot of it was done pre-World War II. And then you have like the Nazi experiments and we're like the Nuremberg trials and we're like, this is internationally illegal now. So then that's when they kind of went into the shadows with this shit a lot more, you know? It was always done and always kind of knew to be wrong, but the legalities of it actually center around World War II and how the Nazis, we didn't like how the Nazis were doing it. But we did it anyways, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It was like kind of like we have to punish the Nazis and say no one can do this.
Yeah.
If we say they can't.
Because they only did it to Jews. We're doing it to everybody, okay? So it's all right.
Yeah, exactly. We're doing it to each other.
Yeah.
We're doing it to the military.
We're doing it to our own military agents. You know, they're our property. So
yeah, we might have signed this official space treaty, but we're only blowing up our own satellites and moons.
Yeah.
US got to the moon first, so it's ours.
Yeah. You see that flag?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Who do you want to talk about next, Dr. Rinkel or Stanley Lovell?
Stanley Lovell. So Stanley Lovell is he was someone said he was kind of like a guy named Q from James Bond. I'm not super familiar with James Bond movies. I don't know if you are, but he was like the tech guy behind the OSS. So he's the fucking he like invented gadgets and shit and would like come up with crazy schemes. Like he was super. One article I read talked about he came up with a lot of poop related schemes. So, like he was planning on like covering North Africa with fertilizer so that all the German soldiers would get diseases.
So he was more like a comedian.
Yeah, he was just like a big child. But he was super smart.
He's like, how do we put poop into our guns? And
Yeah.
can we drop poop out of airplanes?
He was like, let's just drop shit all over the whole fucking place.
All right, we make a satellite and we drop giant rods of poo down, and the poo will break the sound barrier and be as strong as nukes. Why don't we just use like metal or something? Well,
yeah,
I'm environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
Ahead of his time, that's all.
You want to get caught?
Yeah, exactly. Well, have you heard of Family Guy? Well, you're gonna hear of it. Your grandchildren are gonna tell you about Family Guy, and you're gonna understand.
Yeah. So yeah,
he liked poo and cool ass fucking tech gadgets. Eh?
Yeah, he was pretty cool guy. He's a really interesting person to read about.
Yeah.
He was brought in personally by Wild Bill Donovan.
Corked their butts. But yeah, Wild Bill brought him in for some funny. So Wild Bill was like the headliner, and this guy was the middle.
Pretty well.
He's like, keep it running. Anslinger only had a few minutes. He's a fucking square. George White dosed him before the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's cool.
Yeah, and Lovell, it said, contacted some British spies, I guess.
Oh,
maybe by mistake.
Here's a funny thing.
He fell into a honey trap.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do you know who Aleister Crowley is?
No. Sounds like a Robert Maxwell type.
I don't know Robert Maxwell that well, but he's a super, like, he's a big conspiracy. If you know conspiracies, you probably know of Aleister Crowley. He's like literally.
So yeah, I've tried to forget about him on purpose.
He's like literally a fucking like a demon almost, like considered by some people. So he was super into like the occult, and I think he wrote a book called Magic with a K. Like he spelled with, and that's totally different than regular magic. That's real magic. And so, anyways,
magic with a K.
You can read about him. He's a crazy guy.
It's the magic that Duncan Trussell and Joe Rogan talk about.
Yeah.
Like how Joe Rogan and Nancy Pelosi had to stand with the Bible in front of everyone while they said their weird shit. Like that kind of magic.
That idea comes from Aleister Crowley. He was all about that, and he wrote about a book about that shit. Yeah. So he's an interesting guy. He did a lot of fucked up things, I think. But he also
eating adrenal glands and sucking off goats and shit.
Yeah, probably shit like that. Yeah, exactly. So one thing I didn't know about him until I started doing this research was he actually might be a British spy. Some people are 100% sure he was a British spy.
Yeah.
If you look it up,
it's more likely than not he's an intelligence asset if he was involved in these honey trap.
Yeah.
things.
So he was what he was doing, he was really into weird drugs. I can't remember the names of it. Maybe it was like Datura. I think it was Datura, and he would mix it with a drug that doesn't even have like a name. It's just like a Native American Florida drug, like Native Americans use it.
Ancient Chinese mixed with Native American tradition.
Yeah. So he
would use like mix the berserker drugs up with the Viking drugs.
Yeah.
and just went to town on your butthole after.
Yeah, 100%. That's not even a joke. He was all about doing drugs and then having a lot of sex. Nice. And he thought that those two things coming together was like the way to open up into the like next universe or some shit like that. Like open up into like the invisible world, he called it.
Yeah, and well, there was a lot of sex magic stuff. Like if you even look up the beginnings of Scientology, like some L. Ron Hubbard stuff, like pre-Scientology, he got deep into these sex cults out of the U.S.
I read a
Which
little
was
bit
big
that
in the 30s. They were really big in the 30s.
I read a little bit that guy might have been a CIA agent that worked with Aleister Crowley.
Oh, wow. True.
But
Maybe that's where the name's from. But anyways,
yeah,
there was a lot of weird guys who were all involved in, like one of them ended up being a rocket guy who killed himself,
yeah,
who was one of the dudes. I forget who that guy is. He's a big American hero. Who
right.
L. Ron Hubbard was living like an original untrained engineer who was,
Okay.
like, building rockets before like World War II. So like
Okay.
that kind of thing. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if L. Ron Hubbard had a connection to all that
Yeah.
through
Yeah,
this
for sure.
guy, even like
Not
as a subcontractor. Like it was just very strange the way that this guy was able to build rockets without any training and
yeah.
was killed in his own
Yeah.
garage.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. That sounds like some CIA shit. That's
yeah,
easily
exactly.
something
Like,
you can spot. When someone shows up who has no experience and is like an expert already and then dies like 10 years later, that guy worked for the CIA.
yeah, exactly. Or he worked for someone who worked for the CIA.
Yeah, yeah.
The guy
His
who worked for
friend
the
fucked him
CIA is
over.
fine. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, what about so Crowley really fucked over
Oh,
Stanley Lovell, or did he more or less influence
so here's the thing. It's both of
them
those.
Okay.
So during the OSS years, apparently Lovell was super interested in it, but when he started looking at his ideas, he was like, "That's too out there." He was like, "I'm not with what Aleister Crowley's saying." But then George White actually based Operation Midnight Climax on Aleister Crowley's ideas. That's why he was watching people have sex in Midnight Climax, was because he was trying to do what Aleister Crowley was doing. Give people
Nuts.
drugs and then blast through to the invisible world or whatever the fuck his ideas were.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So that's how that's all connected.
Type shit that
Yeah.
To learn about, you kind of probably would start to get searched up by these agencies.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, they worked with a lot of like hypnotists. Lovell was huge on hypnotism. He was a big proponent of that. They found hypnotism though worked to a certain degree, but you couldn't get people to do things that they didn't want to do anyways. So if someone wasn't willing to kill someone, they wouldn't kill somebody.
You can't change someone's mind.
Yeah. You can control their actions limited to like what they already are able.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, before we get into Project Chatter and Reefer Madness and that stuff, because we'll probably have to save that for another episode. Let's talk about and Operation Midnight Climax, because we'll go deep on that one later again. Do it justice.
Right.
But yeah, let's just talk about Dr. Rinkel and Dr. Hyde before we end things.
Dr. Rinkel and Dr. Hyde.
You were saying like this was like the Swiss Sandoz Chemicals.
Yeah. Yeah. They were making the LSD and he was buying it from him, right? Is that what I put?
Well, yeah, this is a bit different. His partner, Dr. Robert Hyde, took the first acid trip in the West.
Right.
Then they organized that LSD study at Boston Psychopathic Institute, where they tested the drug on 100 patients.
So who was that? What was his name?
So that was Dr. Rinkel, and then Dr. Robert Hyde took the first, was his partner.
Okay, so Rinkel, I
Rinkel
believe,
Hyde, like Jekyll
if
and
I'm,
Hyde.
yeah. If I'm remembering this correctly, Rinkel was a German Jew who escaped Germany before the war, and then later was working for the CIA on these experiments.
In Switzerland?
When he left, I think he left during the war and snuck out LSD with him, brought it, and he was the first person to bring it and do it in Western America. That's what the thing I was reading said.
That's Robert Hyde, yeah.
Is it? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Who was that for one to get it over here? But yeah, it says soon, like after this 100 patients thing, soon an elite group of 5 private researchers and 6 U.S. Army physicians began quietly conducting LSD experiments in the U.S. Again, that may or may not be that Shutter Island idea as well.
Right.
Because it is on based out of Boston Island. Leonardo does a bit of a Boston accent there.
Yeah.
Leaving the harbor.
So
is the ferry ever coming? But they're quietly conducting experiments, and Robert Hyde continues on unwitting patients at the CIA center in Rhode Island and then at the Vermont State Hospital. So that's kind of is that like the beginning of the documentation of like outside of the military where they're giving it to?
No, this is, I think, the early like LSD experiments. Here's the thing is I think people get confused and think like this is like a few people doing like a particular stream of experimentations in a row. It's not that at all. This is a multi-department operation. Like the Army, the Navy, the CIA are all simultaneously conducting different experiments, right? So this isn't just like another example. Every time I read something, it would always act like this was the earliest or this was the first thing that happened. This is just another example of a doctor that came over and was doing these LSD experiments. I just put him down because he was the first person to do an LSD trip in the West. That's what I believe he was credited with.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it was 1949, so it makes sense. But yeah, that's a huge, huge thing, like you're saying. And we see today with trouble with 9/11, like all these intelligence agencies are operating on their own, and that's why space forces become created, because you don't want the Air Force, even though the Air Force is still controlling them, like you don't want the Air Force getting too much control over one agency and these other agencies not having access to them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So,
but yeah, I don't know if we want to go too much deeper on too much of the MK Ultra stuff today, but we should.
Yeah, if
loose ends, if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because probably the next part there is Project Chatter, and we'll get into that next time.
Yeah, it's a few pages, and we already went over just a few pages, so I don't want to start that and have anyone go down the rabbit hole just yet.
So I'll just round it up here.
Make it easy for you.
Yeah, I'll round it up here. So what we've been talking about and the people that were involved here were all involved with the early OSS truth drug experiments, and they mostly just conducted with cannabis oil. And we're going to see now in 1949, we have that doctor there. He came over, right, and did experiments. And at the same year, we're also getting the Nazi doctors in 1948. We're getting paperwork out of Japan. And that's when everything changes, 1948. All of a sudden, they say that cannabis stops being an effective, or they find that cannabis wasn't an effective truth drug. But I think it was effective, but they thought they could find a more effective one, right?
Yeah.
And they start having access to all these new drugs in that year and all this new information. And it jumps off in that time. So
nice.
What I was trying to get into with most of this was just the origins of this and the fact that it doesn't originate with Sidney Gottlieb, doesn't originate with Alan Dulles. This was going on way before at this point, Sidney Gottlieb, during World War II, he was just into folk dancing. He actually applied for the military, got denied because he has a club foot, and then just folk danced until 1950 when he got into the CIA.
Nice.
Right? So these experiments are already going on for years. We know before the OSS, Henry Anslinger is working on all kinds of crazy stuff with the FNB. So this has been going on a long time, and the government at all levels knows about it. I don't think for a second that any of this was like an isolated incident and that it's not still going on today.
No, and we're still just folk dancing, right?
Yeah, we're still just folk dancing.
Avoiding the military with the cleft foot.
Yeah.
Whatever bullshit you got to put on the paper or get your doctor friend to write. Back when you could pretend you got a doctor's fucking certificate out of a cereal box. Like, how much could they look into these things back in the day?
I don't know, man. I guess not all that well.
Yeah, exactly. Like when the military's the only people with computers and it's a fucking calculator that fills an entire fucking mansion.
Yeah.
Not going to get them anywhere on the surveillance. And there's no satellites. They're not getting anywhere on the surveillance.
Right.
But yeah, how far we've come is crazy, and how quickly things progress after World War II on the intelligence front is nuts. And just the fact that all the human rights violations and experiments that are still going on then is so interesting.
For sure.
But like you're saying, it's like a rich white boys club that's doing it, and
100%.
mostly them plus their Nazi buddies.
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll try to get some of the articles posted up there with the show notes so you guys can read some more. Or obviously you might have read too much on the topic in the first place if you ended up here, so that's why you came to listen to something. So if you think we missed anything or wanted to hear more about anything in particular we talked about today or didn't talk about, like, let us know in the comments below. Or if you're not on YouTube, you can jump on YouTube to comment, or you can send us an email or a text. And we got that in the show notes below too for you. But yeah,
right on. Don't
forget to rate, review, share, like, subscribe, set us up if you're the FBI. But don't watch all the old episodes when you got time, or just if you don't got time to watch them, put them in your podcast and listen to them while you're sleeping. Learn it through osmosis. But yeah, get our play count up too while you're at it.
Yeah.
Just, put your computer on, like, turn off the screensaver and just leave it running on one of the playlists for us.
Yeah. Yeah, every minute counts.
Yeah, exactly.
We need those watch times to get monetized. Come on, people.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not going to send us money, just do us a favor and use your idle computer so we don't have to hack them on the dark web.
Right on.
All right. But yeah, I don't think I missed anything else. If there's anything you think we missed, let us know. But yeah, don't forget to follow us on IG. Check out the IGTV. We got some funny posts, some weird articles, some dumb shares. But yeah.
Right on.
Thanks for being part of the audience and listening for this long. We hope to keep you around, and you bring your friends and your family. Join the commune. The Rap Drugs commune. But yeah, if you can get us on TikTok, feel free.
Are we on TikTok?
No way. I don't trust that Chinese government. So feel free to make a fake account of us on there, or on the new one. I forget what it's called. There's one out there that's literally just stealing from TikTok and paying other people to post content.
What?
It's a new video service. Oh, I wish I had it in front of me right now.
But you don't.
I'm signed out. Yeah, forget it. We're gonna have to save that for next episode or look it up. But yeah, the watchers are watching. Be careful of Facebook. Be careful if you're looking at us on the Instagram. Like yeah, you probably want to do that on a burner cell if you're up to no good. If it's a work cell, who cares?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Fuck the corporatists.
Yeah,
Burn down those police stations.
Exactly. Be smart out there. Fuck the corporate state, not the fucking small business owner who's just happens to fucking be close to the police station. Fucking remember there's franchise owners at the Tim Hortons, but hopefully they have insurance. So
yeah,
feel free to burn down it. Yeah. Burn down your local Starbucks, not your local coffee shop.
If it's international, burn it down.
Exactly. Especially if it's not
I mean, I'm not inciting violence.
Yeah. Wherever you're protesting from, if it's peaceful, don't fuck that up. But if it isn't peaceful, yeah, fuck up those international businesses in the area.
Yeah, peacefully.
Yeah, exactly. Peacefully burn them to the ground. Yeah, exactly. Peacefully shoot a police officer.
We can't put that on YouTube. That's gonna get taken down.
Obviously, this is a joke. Obviously, if you shoot a police officer, you're even dumber than the police officer shooting people.
Obviously.
Yeah, because
Do
there's
we
like
even have to say it?
Exactly. Unless you got like a semi-automatic weapon. In which case you're a terrible person. Even if whether you're a military police officer or not. I think the military people that kill everybody, they know they're bad.
Yeah.
They know they're bad. It's tough to. That's what PTSD is. It's tough to get through it.
Man.
Yeah. So yeah, you don't want PTSD, so don't bother. But if you do, psychedelic drugs will help, and the research in psychedelic drug spot will still be here for you. We don't discriminate.
We don't discriminate. We trying to save all the peoples.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Power to the people unless you're white. In that case, fuck you. Fuck us.
In that case, go fuck yourself, you white piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like we
Honky
said,
motherfucker.
yeah, exactly. Like we've said before, blue lives don't matter. If you're a cop and you want to keep being a cop, just shut up. Do good. Do the good. Don't virtue signal. Just infiltrate in silence so they don't weed you out. Rat out your friends to your superiors, not to everybody.
Yeah.
Or maybe to a separate internal affairs agency or something like that.
Yeah.
You don't want to get doxxed on Twitter by your boss. Boss's burner count, yeah. Yeah, enough of the crap. Thanks again for listening in.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
For watching if you're on the tube or the IGTV. We'll be coming through with a lot more MK Ultra stuff going deep. Till next week.
Peace.